The recent Israel-Iran conflict started over claims that Tehran was close to possessing nuclear arms.
אתם זוכרים שמתחילת המבצע, אני הבטחתי לכם שמתקני הגרעין של איראן יושמדו בדרך זו או אחרת.
Now that the dust has settled, Iran's nuclear ambitions appear undiminished.
We've got conflicting intelligence assessments about the extent to which the recent attacks have sufficiently degraded Iran's nuclear capabilities.
What's more, others may now want their own weapons of mass destruction.
A military that believes that its country is vulnerable would be very attracted in the option of gaining a nuclear weapon as the ultimate deterrent.
Has the conflict left the world a more dangerous place? Here in South Korea, voices on being nuclear armed are becoming louder.
2022년 러시아 우크라이나 침공 이전에 한국의 전문가들 사이에서 자책무장을 지지하는 사람들이 100명 중에 한두 명이나 될까 말까 했다면은 이제 2023년 이후에는 한국의 안보 관련 전문가들의 3분의 1 정도는 자책무장을 지지할 정도로 자책무장을 지지한 전문가들이 급속도로 늘어났습니다.
Nuclear hawk Chung Song-chan founded the Republic of Korea Forum for Nuclear Strategy in December 2022. The research group studies ways for South Korea to own nuclear weapons, principally to deal with the threat from the north.
전 세계 어느 지도자도 김정은처럼 수시로 미사일 발사 현장, 그것도 군대 내에서의 어떤 훈련 현장에 수시로 참여해가지고 그걸 직접 관찰하고 독려하는 그런 지도자는 김정은 말고는 없습니다. 한국 국민들은 안보에 대해 심각한 불안감을 느끼고 있는 거고.
Officially, South Korea is against being nuclear armed. The country joined the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, or NPT, in 1975.
The Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty came into force initially in 1970. It was the result of negotiations between the existing nuclear powers at that time in the late 1960s. And those negotiations really started because of the tensions between the two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. They realized that they came this close to a nuclear war, and there had to be a way by which they could control the spread of nuclear weapons.
Instead, South Korea would be protected under Washington's nuclear umbrella. This means that the US will use its nukes as a deterrent against attacks on South Korea. President Trump's election victory last year, however, fueled fears over American commitment.
지금까지 우리는 주한미군이 북한의 남침을 막기 위한 그 중요한 어떤 기반이라고 생각을 했는데, 근데 지금은 이제 국제 정치가 과거랑은 다른 방향으로 가고 있죠. 그러니까 미국에서 동맹보다도 이제 미국의 국가 이익을 더 중요하게 생각을 하잖아요.
In one survey last year, more South Koreans prefer to have their own nukes than keeping US military presence on their soil. This was the first time there was a preference for nukes. Israeli and US strikes on Tehran could be another argument for the pro-nuclear camps in South Korea and elsewhere. Iran, like South Korea, is a signatory to the NPT. Israel is not. It is also widely accepted to possess a nuclear arsenal.
The very fact that a nuclear weapon state, which is not a member of the NPT, launched a preemptive strike on an NPT member state which doesn't have nuclear weapons was pretty damning for the Non-Proliferation Treaty. The fact that a nuclear weapon state that is a member of NPT, the United States, also then joined this war is proof to many states that the only means of protection is to have nuclear weapons.
지금 한국이 북한으로부터 받고 있는 위협은 NPT 탈퇴 조건을 충족시키고도 남습니다. 한국이 핵을 가지게 되면은 북한이 더 이상 한국에 대해서 핵으로 위협을 하지 못하게 됩니다.
Meanwhile, initial intelligence reports suggest that the attacks did little to dismantle Iran's nuclear program, though Iran's foreign minister later admitted the damage was serious. In any case, there could be a likelihood that Iran will be eager to restart its nuclear ambitions now.
I would imagine that the recent attacks on the 3 nuclear facilities is most likely going to harden the existing Iranian regime's desire to acquire nuclear weapons.
We know Iran had hundreds of advanced centrifuges that it had produced but not installed in these facilities. And most important thing is that the stockpile of highly enriched uranium is missing and nobody knows where that is. And with those 2 ingredients, advanced centrifuges and a stockpile of highly enriched uranium, Iran can dash towards nuclear weapons in a secret facility. It would take Iran less than 6 days to produce enough uranium enriched to weapons grade for a single nuclear weapon, and it can have an arsenal worth of uranium enriched to 90% in less than a month.
Some analysts believe that the outcome of the Israel-Iran conflict will be both vertical and horizontal proliferation globally. Vertical, where nuclear states acquire more arms. And horizontal, where non-nuclear states develop their own weapons.
Saudi Arabia has already said that if Iran goes nuclear, they would go nuclear. There are other countries in the region like Turkey, Egypt, the UAE. All of these countries would feel that they cannot count on the United States nuclear umbrella, and they would need to have their own nuclear option. And that would create a world that is just so much more dangerous.
The destruction of Iran's nuclear program was just one of Israel's stated aims. At the start of the war, Prime Minister Netanyahu declared that another goal was regime change.
I think Israel believed by targeting the top leadership and by targeting symbols of the regime, the wall of fear will collapse and the Iranian people will come to the streets and would do the job of getting rid of this regime. But that, I think, in practice backfired and created a rally around the flag effect, and a very unpopular regime actually saw people coming together, not necessarily to support it, but to protect their own country against foreign aggression.
In the aftermath, Iran appeared defiant. In his first statement after the ceasefire, the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, claimed victory and warned against future attacks.
در صورتی که تعرضی صورت بگیره هزینه دشمن هزینه متعرض قطعاً بالایی خواهد بود.
Then in July, the Iranian parliament approved a bill to increase the military budget by 200%.
Now that the hostilities have been halted, we're going to have to see how this plays out. Keep in mind that this supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, is 86 years old. We don't know what his health is. There have been lots of reports that he's not well. And so, yeah, there's going to be change in Iran by definition.
I think it is likely that we see one of these 2 scenarios. One is that you have a leader who's no longer supreme, a figurehead, but the real power behind the scene is the military, or that you would actually see the military push the clerical establishment, which is seeing increasingly as a liability, not as an asset, and take over the system.
Yet, even in the unlikely event of a regime change, other threats could emerge. When Saddam Hussein's rule ended in 2003, the power vacuum in Iraq was considered a catalyst for the emergence of ISIS.
Iran is a country of 90 million, and its destabilization certainly creates radicalization, and that kind of radicalization could create more instability, not just in the region, but on European shores and even within the United States.
So, what happens next? President Trump has urged Iran to resume nuclear talks, which were cancelled after the Israeli strikes.
People would be questioning whether Iran should even consider coming back to negotiations, because they were in the midst of negotiating already, and yet they were attacked. So what does this say about goodwill effort from Israel and from the United States?
Both parties want a negotiation. There's no question about it. Neither Iran nor the United States wants to see, or Trump wants to see, an escalation of this conflict. But these were two countries that had no confidence in each other prior to what happened. And clearly the Iranians see that the Americans betrayed them, misled them by bombing the facilities. So the Iranians are not going to take kindly to that.
The question is, will the Iranians do something that would provide additional pretext and justification for the resumption of the war?
It was instructive that, at least in the immediate aftermath of the American attacks, that the Israelis carried on attacking. And the evidence seems to suggest that their ability to rein the Israelis in is limited for the moment. As long as Israel chooses to press home its military advantages, it will be difficult for Iran to say, we're done, we want to negotiate.
In all, the Israel-Iran conflict lasted just 12 days, but its impact could be long-tailed. From global realignment, to military buildup, to nuclear proliferation. In the background, the ceasefire between Israel and Iran holds. But for how long is the all-important question.
There are far too many variables. Israel could take a pretext for further strikes. Iran could start rebuilding its nuclear program, which it's certain to do, and Israel could respond to that. Whatever I would say would be pure speculation, putting my finger up in the air and seeing which way the wind blows.
Well, I think this ceasefire is very fragile because the problem has not gone away. Unless a mutually beneficial diplomatic solution is put forward and is put forward quickly, I think this ceasefire is nothing but a pause.
We are never going to get to a safer world with violence countering violence, where violence today means nuclear weapons. The road that takes us down is, I think, not worthwhile contemplating. We need to pull it back to where diplomacy and consultation become the tools by which we resolve these differences.